Good evening and welcome to another week of Let's Talk Business. This is the third week of us talking to successful business owners, learning and getting pointers from people who have done it. I am so excited. We have another great guest, but as always, we will start with a topic. This particular topic, it's actually a topic that not a lot of people want to talk about or even hear. It's about failure. Specifically for our show, failure in business. So according to SBA, 50% of small businesses fail in its first year, and 95% fall within its first 5 years. That's staggering numbers. In business, there are three types of failures. The first one is a preventable failure. This is the worst kind of failure. These are failures that could have been foreseen but missed. Some examples are owners not following best practices, not having the right talent, right, the wrong, and then or missing details. Details is very important, right? The second one is unavoidable failures. These are failures that happen due to complex situations. Most of the time, the situations that the business did not create. The best way for this to stop happening would be just to create a system that could spot this type of failures, and you can make adjustments pretty much. It's hard. I mean, if you're a trucking company, for example, and then gas prices go up like the way we have now, that's unavoidable failure, right? If it gets to the point that your business actually fails because you're spending so much for that money, for that gas. The third one would be intelligent failures. The best kind of failures, if there's such a thing, failures that do not hit the business too much. They do not consume too much resources. It's kind of similar to a trial and error approach, pretty much. It's so something that you learn from and then make quick adjustments right away. The best thing to remember about failure is learn from them. If you do not learn from your mistakes, then that is the real failure. So I love Tony Robbins. Here are some reasons why businesses fail according to Tony Robbins. Okay. The first one, not having an effective business plan. You need to be able to communicate your vision and have a little map, or I like to call it guide. So at least you always have a direction. You always know where you're at, or where are you as far as your mission is or your goal is, and how far away are you from hitting that winning spot. Second, not putting customer first. Turn your customer into a raving fan. I mean, it's always the best. In banking, for example, the best kind of referrals that we get are warm referrals. So they're referrals from clients who are really happy with your service. And then they'll tell their friends. That's one foot inside the door already, a testimonial from somebody. And the best way to do that is get testimonial from your fans, from your customers. The third one is not hiring the right people. You need to make sure that you hire the right people. Actually, our guest is going to be an HR consultant, so that's definitely something that she'll talk about later. They need to make sure that it fits their culture. They're confident and they can sell whatever your product is or your service is. Number 4, doing it all yourself. This is a hard one for a perfectionist. You need to be able to hire people that you can trust and then delegate to them and manage it effectively. You need to be able to trust people, work smart, allow them to grow also, and listen to their ideas. So, but trying to do it all on yourself is very scary. Number 5, lack of flexibility. You need to be able to adapt to the market. The one thing that's always constant in our life is change, right? An old boss would always tell me, hey, things change every 6 months. So if you adopt that principle, be very flexible. Things might change in 6 months, and then you have to be able to move your business to the right direction on whatever is trending. Number 5, lack of innovation and in marketing. There's a ton of businesses that have gone out because of lack of innovation. I think the one that comes to my mind, and it's a big business, not a small business, is Borders. I used to love that bookstore. My wife and I would go there every weekend and go through magazines, buy a couple of books, and one day it was just gone. And at that time, Amazon Kindle, Nook, all of those things started coming out, iPads, and they never innovated from that. They were so stubborn in just selling books and paperbacks. So unlike the other one, Barnes& and Noble, where they adapted that a little bit. So lack of innovation could really hurt your business. Not understanding your industry. Again, that goes back to continual innovation and improvement. So if there's trends that's going on, you need to be able to adapt. You need to be able to change. Number 8 is fear of business failure. You need to be able to overcome your fear. And I get it, especially on startup businesses, especially when you're starting up and your income is limited. There's so much fear because, of course, you need to put food on the table. You have family to take care of. And you're always afraid that, oh my God, what's going to happen if I lose? Sometimes the best scenario is when your back is against the wall, and that's when you do well because you don't have a choice. But sometimes when you have that fear, it's harder to overcome it. Wrong mindset. Number 9, transform from defeat to empowerment. Make sure, think positive. Always have your vision in sight. Know how success looks like, and just keep on moving towards that. Number 10, lack of vision. You need to have a vision, and you need to be loyal to your vision. You might change it here and there or make minor adjustments, but as long as you keep the vision that you have, how you foresee your business being successful, that would help you out a lot. Lack of passion. The passion is really the unstoppable drive that would keep you going. There are going to be times where you're going to start questioning yourself. Can I really do this? Is this something that I could really do, or should I just stop and go back into the workforce? No, keep on going. Lack of passion, that's going to be the result of it. You doubting yourself and maybe quitting early. But having that passion will keep you moving forward. Ineffective marketing strategies. That's really a critical step. We talked about marketing last week, and this is such a big thing in your business. You need to make sure that you have the most effective marketing strategy, hire the right people for your marketing, and you're reaching your correct target audience. Number 13 is not understanding your X factor. You need to have an added value or what sets you apart. I'm going to go back again to my banking days. Okay, most banks, all banks do the same thing, right? What do they do for businesses? They lend money, they have deposit accounts. So how do you set yourself apart from other bankers? Now, I know that's not a business. It's kind of like you, but okay, when you translate that into your own business, let's say you sell X widget, and there are so many different companies that sell X widgets also. How do you set yourself apart from the other companies? Is it customer service? Is it a delivery, a promise of fast delivery? Whatever is the point that would make your clients happy, that's what you need to reach. And lastly, asking the wrong questions. Same thing. I'm a big believer. If you have a set of clients, for example, check with them from time to time. Hey, are we doing the right job? Are you happy with our service? Is there something that we can do that's different that would make your life easier? Ask that question about, hey, what keeps you up at night? Maybe we can help you ease that. Those are the kind of questions that you need to be asking, so you can always make adjustments and continue to make your clients happy. So the big question is, why should you embrace failure? Every successful entrepreneur has experienced failure. Embracing failure helps us develop an entrepreneurial mind that allows us to move forward. That's number 1. It does, because it keeps you sharp. It keeps you thinking about, okay, how can I overcome failure? What can I change that would make a failure to a success, right? Failure will hit everyone at some point. If you don't think you will, then when you do get that failure, it will hit you twice as hard. So be prepared for it, and don't let it get you down to the point that you don't want to do business anymore, because it will. There's a saying: you're not a real businessman if you haven't failed yet. It will eventually hit you, no matter what. So just be prepared for it, and then again, like I always say, learn from it. Failure being alert to failure can help you respond and recover faster. Now, once you understand that you can fail at any time, it's a lot easier for you to be more proactive in not making the same mistakes, or at least knowing the signs that something's going wrong, and then you can make some changes. Okay? Failure is an opportunity to learn. That's what I always say. You got to learn from those mistakes and make it better. Overcoming challenges promotes strength. You become stronger when you fail, right? When we do things wrong, or when we make mistakes and we go through that process of getting better, it helps us. It makes us stronger. Failure means you have courage and you're stronger. Because you know what? It's really hard to face failure. It's hard to face things that you know that can put you down, or people will say, you can't do it. But when you face it and you go through it, you become you're more courageous, and it makes you a better person. Failure creates new opportunities. Failures provides answers. That's why I always say, learn from it. I say, well, tell you what went wrong, and then you can make changes. Failure gives you the best chance of success. It helps you learn, make better decisions, helps you learn empathy for your employees. And that's a big one. When you failed, you know how it feels like. You know what you have to go through. So now when you have an employee and they're failing with their job, it's not, you have a better understanding of what they're going through, and you might provide them with more support or more training. You're more apt to give them chances and say, okay, you know what, I understand you failed. Let's learn from it and let's move forward, rather than you being so harsh on them right away, right? And then lastly, failure makes you have humility. And humility is very, very important in business, because you know what? At some point, you will always reach a rough patch, and keeping humble will allow you to be able to ask questions with more people, and more people will be willing to give you help, right? When you're doing that. Here are some examples of businesses that failed that eventually did well, and of course, some of these are big names, right? I can't think of a bigger one than Apple. Apple fired Steve Jobs in 1985 and rehired him in 1997. But that period, Apple was near bankrupt. In fact, I remember I used to work at Good Guys like around 1993. And I was looking at Apple, and they were at like, what, $2 a share at that point. And I was like, should I buy some shares? And I said, forget it. They're going to be going out of business soon. And then look, they rehired Steve Jobs, and the rest is history. They're doing so great now. FedEx is another example. They're actually an example of an unavoidable failure. Gas prices is the one that kind of almost nearly bankrupt the FedEx, and luckily for them, they were able to rebound from that. Airbnb is another one. Persistence after losing or not having investors in the beginning kept them going, but at first it failed. Evernote is another one. In 2008, was about to close due to lack of interest, but yet an investor that believed in the company gave them $500,000, and then they've moved forward since then. Then lastly, there's Reddit. At launch, they had zero visitors. So they became creative on how they wanted to do it. Instead of folding shop and saying, okay, we can't do this, they started doing fake discussions on Reddit. And then it caught on, and then people started logging into Reddit, and then there you go. That's what happened. There are also a number of successful business leaders that have failed in the beginning. Again, I cannot think of a bigger name than Bill Gates, number one. He started Traffic O-Data, which failed before he started Microsoft. KFC, Colonel Sanders, his recipe was rejected by 1,000 restaurants before getting the one yes, and then he founded KFC when he was 65 years old. And then lastly, Evan Williams. He founded Odeo that failed before founding Twitter. So again, failure is good. Failure is okay, as long as you learn from it, makes you stronger, and then you move forward. So let me end this segment with a couple of quotes from a couple of people that failed. It's fine to celebrate success, but it's more important to heed the lessons from failure. That is from Bill Gates. And then lastly, failure is only the end if you decide to stop. So do not quit. There you go. All right, we're going to go on our first break, our quick break. And when we get back, we are going to meet our special guest for the day. See you back.
Just like a friend from back home. This is your Filipino radio experience in Las Vegas. PHLV Radio. PHLV Radio.
Welcome back. All right, I'm excited to have to introduce our guest. It's a good friend of mine. Her name is Rachel Autry from HR. Rachel, how are you?
Great. Thank you so much for having me, Sonny. Really excited to be here.
No problem. Of course, it's my pleasure. So tell us about your company, what kind of services your company provide, and anything that you want to say about your company.
Thank you. So the HR Company is a group of HR consultants and recruiters, and we're designed to help the small business owner navigate through their hiring, onboarding, employee relations, and HR compliance needs.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to ask you the same question that I've asked every guest that I've had so far. What inspired you to open a business?
Wow. Good question. I have to say that it goes back to my mom and dad. So they're immigrants, and they came here to the States as professionals. Dad was an accountant, mom was a physician. As they navigated through, certifications and the training in order to get their appropriate licenses to practice their professions here in the States, they also wanted to balance it with their passions, and their passion was really in arts and entertainment. And so as they were building their professional careers, they were also building a production company on the side. So simultaneously growing up, they were building 4 medical clinics in Los Angeles while we were performing on stage and doing TV specials for the Philippines. So, so I thought everybody was an entrepreneur and juggled 2 or 3 different professions at the same time.
That's interesting. Well, tell us about the singing career first. So you're a singer too, right?
Yeah.
What's the name of the group again?
Oh, it was the Gomez Family Singers.
There you go.
So that's how we started, and family went on to have professional careers while they pursued their passion for the arts as well. So
that's awesome. Tell me, okay, when you decided to start your business, how has your journey been? Was it roses, wines and roses right away, or did you make sacrifices along the way, made some changes, and then hit that, okay, I made it?
Right. Well, really good question. So when I started as a recruiter, and I was hired on to sort of be that gap filler. We had clients that were having staffing needs and hiring needs, and my role was really to just kind of connect the dots, matchmake, if you will, find the candidate that would fit this particular role, and just sort of coordinate the interview process. At some point, pretty quickly, probably a few months in, I realized that not having ownership of that entire process and not really understanding on a deeper level what the client's needs were, that my success in that role was going to be very limited. So pretty quickly, I decided the best way to be successful in that role, and it was a role that I loved, was to find my own client base. So it wasn't easy. I had to do the hard part of picking up the phone and cold calling, doing research, and just really kind of developing that conversation and trying to strike a relationship and to find out what their hiring needs were and to offer myself as a resource. So it took a little bit of navigating and kind of fine-tuning what that looked like, but being brave enough to kind of say I want to own the entire process was really what made the difference for me.
Nice. In my monologue earlier in the beginning of the show, I talked about the importance of hiring the right people. You're an HR consultant. I know this is deviating from our questions, but can you tell us how important it is to hire the right people?
Absolutely. So, starting from the recruiting part, when you're dealing with large national organizations, and I was fortunate enough to be able to hire or to be able to have clients that were Fortune 500 companies, multi-billion dollar companies. That's how that career started. But at some point, what I found was in kind of digging into the local communities and really focusing on the small business owners, their needs were different. They also had hiring needs, but there was a lot of not understanding the compliance parts. That larger organizations they have the infrastructure and the the people in place to be able to tell them, hey, you need to fill out these forms X, Y, and Z. These are all requirements by the federal government, Department of Labor, that sort of thing. And smaller companies, small business owners just weren't familiar with that. So the role as an HR consultant went beyond just the hiring and the recruiting aspects and really became more of a consultant type of a role. One-on-one, where are you at? Where are your specific needs? Are they employee relations related? Are they hiring needs? Are they onboarding? Is it getting and maintaining and understanding what you're supposed to do with all of those employee documents? So there were a lot of more intricate, detailed needs from a small business owner than the larger firms. So being able to be an HR consultant, I felt that I could be of more value or more valuable to the small business owner than to the larger firms.
God, believe me, I know exactly what you mean. That's the last thing that I want to tackle. Opening a business, the HR stuff. All right, how long have you been in business now, Rachel?
So as I had my own staffing agency for about 15 years. And then with the pandemic, it shifted. A lot of our clients, as you well know, the hiring needs just weren't there. People, it was just a different time. So during the pandemic, we found a lot of the small business owners, locally in particular, that just needed that specific help. And I thought, I think I can kind of pivot from the recruiting business and kind of focus on the HR consulting piece separately. So the HR company has been in existence for 2 years.
Good.
As an offshoot, yeah.
All these years you've been in business, how have you maintained your success? How many times did you have to make adjustments along the way?
Oh, often. Like I mentioned, even in the beginning, there was just a piece of the process that I owned, but once I opened it up and learned and became vulnerable enough to take some of those failures, like you mentioned, and really learning from them, that was a whole learning curve. When the economy and the market crashed, that was a whole other learning curve. We had the introduction of LinkedIn and other recruiting tools and job boards that we didn't have before. And so being able to learn those tools. It was kind of that old dog learning a new trick type of a thing, right? So you just had to be open to it, and you had to ask the right questions and be vulnerable enough to just say, hey, I don't get it. What else do I need to do? If I was sending the wrong candidates as the client's needs changed, I had to be willing to ask more detailed questions. What is the direction of your company? How can I be a better resource for you? So there was a lot of that, self-awareness from a personal perspective, but also professionally to be able to pivot and change. So as the market changed and then hiring needs sort of picked up again, and then the pandemic hit, there were a lot of changes that happened along the way.
Wow. So now at this point, I'm going to ask everybody the same question. So what still keeps you up at night? What keeps you going?
Oh, what keeps me going? I have to say, you mentioned it. You said passion. If you ask me, Rachel, what are you really good at? I have to say I'm a gap filler. I'm really good at finding out what the businesses need. And I like to kind of come in and say, how can I fill that gap for you? How can I help you be more successful? And for me, the passion behind that, the sense of purpose behind it is really, I love finding people jobs. I love putting people to work. I love seeing businesses succeed. And so doing it in the smaller level, dealing with small business owners, I feel as if I can have a more direct impact on that. So that keeps me up at night. So if I feel as if I haven't answered the right questions for my clients, what else do I need to do? Who else do I need to find to be able to help them solve those issues?
Nice. So for a young entrepreneur out there, what would you be your best advice for them when they're opening up a business or just open a business? What would you tell them?
I think my biggest piece of advice for them would be find a mentor. I didn't get where I am today by doing it alone. Granted, you have to have the self-motivation and the drive to answer some of those questions, research and those things on your own. But I really relied on the expertise of other people. Whether they were recruiters or whether they were in a different industry, I learned a lot, whether it was marketing strategies, how to brand yourself, sales, just new, verbiage. Things change, tools change. And so the mentors in my life really helped set me up for success and helped me to understand when it was time to pivot. I think that was really important.
I like that.
Find a mentor.
Find a mentor. That's awesome. Okay. Last question. Any parting words? Please mention about your book. Let's tell our audience about your book.
Oh, well, thank you. So regarding my book, I was asked to contribute to a book on legacy. And it was about a personal journey from 25 Filipino Americans, kind of chronicling whether they were born in the Philippines and immigrants or if they were born here, just kind of what their struggles or sacrifices and what their successes look like. So I was very, very honored to be part of that, one of 25 contributing writers.
Nice.
And so, so that's actually going to print now and should be ready for distribution in June. So very excited.
Nice. How about your company? Give us some parting words.
For my company, I would say find your purpose. I think if it wasn't that I love talking to people and love helping them to find jobs or to be successful in their careers, I think I would not be doing what I'm doing. I would treat it as a job. And I think as entrepreneurs and having that entrepreneurial spirit, those visions keep us going. And for me, that sense of purpose and helping others is part of my vision. And so I think that's a big thing. Always keep moving forward and don't be afraid to pivot when needed.
That's right. What did I always say? If you're doing what you love, it's not a job.
Absolutely.
Wow. Thank you so much, Rachel, for coming on the show. We truly appreciate the words. I hope you had fun, and thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks, Sonny. I appreciate it.
Well, that is our show for the evening. Thank you for tuning in again. Next week is going to be the last week, our last segment for talking to successful business owners. And then come May, we're going to be talking to people, Filipinos that have broken through barriers. So very excited for that. See you next week. Take care.